The sun, or what was left of it, hung low in the purple, tinged haze of an unrecognizable sky, casting eerie shadows over the ruins of what used to be our home. Bitumen crumbled beneath my feet as I sprinted past skeletal structures entangled in creeping vines that glowed faintly, exuding a phosphorescent shimmer. Each heartbeat thudded against my ribcage, echoing the chaos of what was once civilization, now just a world that humans had refused to abandon, by necessity more than choice. I didn't have time to ponder the irony of it all. The metallic roar of a cleanup drone whirred behind me, its searchlights piercing through the flickering darkness. They were relentless, programmed to scavenge the remains of life we had ignored. I ducked behind what had once been a vibrant cafe. Café Solace, or so the blasted sign had claimed. I pressed against the cold, damp stone, trying to slow my breath, listening. I could hear their voices. Frantic, desperate, alive. "Tara, where are you?" A more familiar sound, breaking through the drone's whir. A voice that made the pit of my stomach drop. Riordan. He was always getting too close to the line, and I had told him more than once to keep his head down. I'd chosen to stand apart, to watch him from a distance. Now, it seemed, the distance had dwindled. Anguish threaded through the urgency of his voice. The urge to answer him swelled inside me, but the fear bubbled faster, clawing at my throat. If the drones didn't find me first, what would I tell him? That I couldn't stay, that I must leave this hellhole because I could no longer stand watching innocent lives lost beneath the weight of our mistakes. The last few vestiges of humanity were clinging to a thread, and I was tangled in it. "But Tara," he called again, his voice stretched thin, laced with frustration and care, as if hearing the tenderness beneath his desperation could anchor me back to the wreckage of our home, the same home he fought to protect, while I struggled to detach. "I'm here," I hissed, risking exposure as I moved from the shadow of the cafe. Darkness gave way to harsh, artificial light as I stepped into view, and there he was, winded and standing firm like a stubborn stone in a stream, waiting for the tide to turn. "We can't stay here. They'll find us. And not without you," he countered, urgency still wrapping around him like an iron shackle. The faint green glow from the surrounding flora illuminated his pockmarked face, emphasizing the lines of worry that had spread since our last disastrous expedition. "We need to take shelter now, Tara. There are still ways to fight back. We can find the others, fight back." Those words hung like air too thick to breathe, binding me further. "This place, you really think we can fight from a crater?" Riordan's jaw clenched tight, like an impenetrable door. "We're not fighting for this crater. We're fighting for what it should have been," he argued. I glanced over my shoulder, hearing the soft whirring of the drone as it cut off the distance between us. A flicker of cold dread tightened in my chest. Time was ticking down, and my decision weighed heavy. Who would I choose, between the battle for this land and the battle for my freedom? The world around us was still burning with the ghosts of yesterday's ideals, and I was afraid that kind of heritage was all we would leave behind. "Enough," I hissed, losing the whisper of patience I'd held onto. "We can't change what's already happened. You've seen the scans. It is too late for this world." The familiar gleam of defiance in his eyes dulled for a fleeting second. An acknowledgement that buried something deeper. The suspension of our reaching dreams tangled with the fear of a crumbling future. We were faith, deficient, yet here we stood still hoping. "Let's at least find cover," he insisted, determination kindling life back into him. With that, he turned, jogging towards the twisted remnants of an old museum, its structure half, sunken and overtaken by the glowing flora. It was a choice between life and oblivion, and for now, I would follow him into the mouth of a memory we had yet to erase. The world that humans had long refused to abandon twisted and molded itself around us. We were relics standing in a display cabinet of lost time. Together, we moved toward the fading remnants of a broken society, neither of us knowing what we hoped to find. But as the shadows lengthened and the drone loomed closer, it was the only path before us. "Do you remember the stories?" Riordan asked, casting glances over his shoulder. "How they always had a way out. I stopped believing in stories a long time ago," I admitted, the words tasting bitter as they passed my lips. "Maybe it's time to start again," he replied, a spark of light igniting his tone despite our dire situation. As we braced against the torrent of our troubled past, I couldn't help but wonder if we were merely prolonging the inevitable, decaying beneath a world of denial that only continued to unravel. But with looming threats bearing down and destiny blanketing us in uncertainty, maybe, just maybe, we'd find a way to carve out something new from the ashes of our refusal to abandon this world. Within the crumbling confines of the museum, dust danced in the flickering glow of chipped holographic displays. Their once luminous surfaces showcased items long forgotten, a vibrant collection of history that had long since faded from memory. As I stepped deeper into the shadows alongside Riordan, a sense of surrealism washed over me. It was remarkable to think that people had once gathered here, marveling at art and stories of triumph, unaware they were heading toward collapse. "Look at this," Riordan murmured, pointing cautiously to a damaged flare, a primitive art piece depicting a dragon capturing a luminous star in its maw. A small portion of the display flickered with faint life, memories emerging from a time before the strife, a term we had learned to dread in hushed tones. "It appears mythical." "It's metaphorical," I replied, my voice echoing in the massive chamber. "What do they call it? The grand stories that distort reality. We were the creators of our myths, and look where it's led us." A small grin flitted across his features, frustration still evident but mingling with an appreciation for our fleeting shared moment. "Maybe we could create a new one," he suggested, teasing apart my cynicism. "A place for us. Where is the earth not enough for you? This place, once so alive, has turned to ruins." The bitterness slipped out unguarded as fear trickled forth. I strayed away from him, letting anger bubble just beneath the surface. There were dangers here that resonated deeper than the encroaching drone. "Tara, you've got to let go of this despair." He followed me, his brow furrowing. "If we can get access to the console room in the back, we might find something useful. There should be old recordings in the archives," he urged, gesturing to the darkened corridor leading deeper into the museum. I hesitated. "And what if we find nothing? Then we try again." His eyes gleamed with an unwavering resolve. "We don't stop seeking until we can assure everyone. The survivors find some semblance of hope." And though I wanted to argue, something in his voice coaxed me forward. I sensed the fragile bond still tethering us together. After all, the last strands of humanity needed to hold us steady, even amidst the weight of despair. As we navigated further into the museum's depths, shadows writhed like tendrils, threatening to swallow us whole. Each corner we turned revealed remnants of lives once lived, bits of an old civilization that appeared vibrant, but now felt eternally trapped. A sudden hum vibrated through the air, thrumming at our cores. "What the—" I barely managed to ask, when it surfaced a defense turret that had been dormant for years spun to life, its silhouette against the backdrop of the dimly lit hall. "Down," Riordan shouted, pulling me to the cold stone floor. The turret whirred harshly, scanning us with relentless precision. Wires snapped and hummed, each voltage threatening destruction. "We can distract it." "No, we need to evade, not engage," I whispered, but even as the words escaped, I could feel my heart hammering in my chest. As Riordan scrambled back to his feet, I caught a glimpse of another figure across an old exhibition room. The figure stood, clad in tattered urban armor, their face obscured by a hood. Sensing us, they spun and darted, seemingly preserving the memories of the fallen in the wreckage. Whatever this soul was, they were swift and practiced at survival, traits I could only admire. "Hold on," Riordan shouted and took off in pursuit, instinctively trusting that whoever that was might guide us away from the turret. I followed, despite the nagging fear that seeing this stranger could put us all in more danger. The three of us raced through the old hallways as the turret unleashed energy blasts. blinding bursts of light exploding behind. I could see the flicker of potential answers, hidden within the ruins, the remains of our past shielding the truth of our present. As we barreled through an archway into what had once been a vibrant gallery, the sudden stillness halted us. Paintings lingered on the walls, and though the images were smudged by time, one section told stories of liberation. This moment felt almost sacred in a world of chaos. "Stop!" the hooded figure shouted, signaling us both to a standstill. "But what are you doing here, looking for answers?" Riordan panted. "We heard there could be archives in the console room. We didn't know anyone else was." "Why should I trust you?" the figure paced, hand hovering over a small wrist-mounted device that glinted with danger. "The Council sent drones this way. They're on high alert for trespassers. You'd best leave now. Then you could help us." I cut in, feeling the need to interject. "We want to find a resistance anyone still fighting the Council. We want to uncover the truth. We want to help." The figure studied us carefully, assessing our sincerity. After what felt like an eternity, the tension shifted visibly. "I'm Kyan, and if you're truly looking for answers, then you've stumbled into a dead end. But perhaps I can salvage something more. The truth isn't found in these ruins but buried beneath them." With a nod of understanding passed between Riordan and me, Kyan turned, leading us deeper into wreckage that might hold answers long concealed. As we followed, the echoes of the past silently rose around us, the weight of potential conflict now growing heavier. "What is it you hope to find?" Kyan asked, glancing over their shoulder as we entered a long, abandoned hallway. "What is it you're fighting against?" "The Council," Riordan replied, adrenaline fueling his voice. "They're the ones really responsible for what's happened to this world. They sought power at the expense of human lives. We want to expose them for who they really are." Kyan's eyes narrowed slightly, caught between intrigue and skepticism. "And what makes you think this is a fight worth winning? People die for beliefs every day. Because every person wants a life worth living, Kyan." I exclaimed before I had the time to temper my outburst. "We've already lost too many lives. If we fight, maybe we can build something new. A future free from this tyranny." They paused, considering my words. "All it takes is one spark to flare up a world already ablaze," Kyan murmured. As we stepped into an oversized chamber, etched with dust, laden projections showing blueprints and plans, I felt that spark ignite within the stillness. Boxes of forgotten memories nestled in corners. Cables and devices waited to exhale their utility back into the world. Perhaps this was our chance, our key to re-enter the fight. What secrets of the past lingered in this loaded silence, and would we dare uncover them? I felt the sudden weight of expectation pushing us, making it clear that the clock was ticking, and the answers beckoned a catalyst towards our survival. But together with Riordan and Kyan, I sensed we were teetering on the brink of something profound. It felt like the unfolding of fresh legends amidst the ashes of our lost stories. Only time would reveal if we would actually write them, or simply become another tale lost to the echoes of hope. The chamber was dimly lit, the flickering light stuttering like a heartbeat against the jagged outlines of long, abandoned technology. Dust hung thick in the air, settling on displays of dreams long buried. As we stepped over the detritus of a civilization that had once dared to dream of a brighter future, I could not shake the premonition that we were walking among ghosts. Kyan stood at the center of the room, surveying the scattered relics. There were weapons, functional holographic interfaces, and equipment that might have held the power to illuminate the darkest corners of our past. They grabbed a piece of machinery, brushing away layers of dirt and grime, revealing a name engraved on its side, a resonant beacon. I could only assume it had once acted as a communication device, a lifeline to those still fighting against the horrors of the Council. "Help me with this," Kyan commanded, efficiently disentangling wires from a frayed bundle. "If we can power this up, we might find records left behind, plans, names, maybe even locations of resistance cells." "Give me a hand here," Riordan said, shaking off the lingering awe that had cast its shadow over him. I stepped closer, drawn by the pulsating fervor of hope that flickered between us. With each tight-lipped exchange, I could see the flickers of an unspoken trust brewing within our trio. Battling against shadows of the past required this newfound alliance, one that I hoped would carry us and others forward into the light. Kyan worked quickly, their fingers deftly maneuvering through cables, a focused frown etched on their brow. I could not help but wonder what truths they sought, what drove them to wander this treacherous path. Maybe that could be our strength. We could share our burdens of grief and survival. Got it, Kyan exclaimed, connecting the last wire. The machine crackled to life, emitting a low hum that reverberated throughout the chamber. An array of lights blinked on, casting long shadows against the walls, and a holographic interface materialized before us, swirling with data strobes. Now let's see what we're working with. As the hologram settled, a map unfolded that stretched infinitely across the space, dotted with static markers glowing ominously. Some blipped, others faded. These are the remnants, survivor groups, but they don't denote activity. Many are burned out. Kyan squinted at the screen, hesitating for a brief moment as they continued. And then there are those marked for extermination. We're not just fighting the Council, they've designated places for complete elimination. As their words settled in, concern itched at my throat. How can we change this? How can we save the remnants if they're already under threat? My voice dipped below the uncertain aura, but it wasn't just about our survival anymore. In those fraught seconds, I was reminded of the shared breaths of lives intertwined with hopes lingering on the brink of loss. We unite, Kyan replied, voice steeled in conviction. We share the knowledge we gather. Protecting those figures on this map requires alliances. We're not alone in this fight. The Council doesn't just control technology, Riordan chimed in, crossing his arms. They wield fear. Think about how they've molded us into their twisted vision. People have turned against one another to survive. If we can turn that fear back against them, as he spoke, the undercurrent of truth coursed through us and aligned our shared purpose against the horizon's impending darkness. A beep echoed from the machine, and Kyan leaned closer, frowning. The resonance gauge indicates a strong signal nearby. There's something buried deep beneath this location that we haven't discovered yet, they said, tracing a finger along the map converging toward a pulsating red point deep in the heart of the building. If we could retrieve it, it could change everything. What if it's a trap? I asked, biting back another surge of apprehension. The Council could have eyes everywhere. That's a risk we'll have to take, Kyan answered, determination in their voice. We have to press forward. Our time is running thin, and if we hesitate, we endanger not only ourselves, but everyone still fighting out there. I caught a glance from Riordan. A shared understanding shaped in the fragments of solace. We were not striding into the unknown alone. We each bore wounds of loss and fear, but within that pain lay the embers of defiance. Let's go, I said with newfound resolve. We find this thing together. Every echo seemed to pulsate like the heartbeat of a future pulsing with hope. But that hope was a flicker against the monumental dark. As we moved deeper, shadows morphed into grotesque figures. I could not shake the feeling that something lurked just behind our shoulders. Each flicker of the holographic map narrowed our path, driving us toward that ominous point. The air crackled with tension, a quiet foreboding that compelled us forward, spiraling us toward an unknown that teased the line of revelation. The narrow hallway twisted and turned, layers of dust enveloping our feet like secrets hidden beneath the surface. It felt as though the walls themselves whispered a cautionary tale of spirits, who had long since perished within these very reaches of this ancient structure. We reached a heavy, reinforced door at the end of the corridor, the dull metallic surface scratched and dented, but standing defiantly against time. This must be it, Kyan said, running a hand over the panel as if seeking a connection. If I can get this access panel working, we'll find out what lies inside, Stay alert, Riordan urged, scanning the shadows beyond the door's perimeter. We can't let our guards down. Kyan groaned as they worked on the panel. No sounds penetrated the thick walls. A soft beeping resounded before the door let out a long draw. Nout hiss, a wounded creature finally claiming its secrets. The door slid open, releasing musty air that carried the scent of decay and aged technology. Kyan led the way cautiously inside, and I followed closely behind, heart pounding like a drumbeat against the silence. Before us lay a massive chamber filled with rows of dormant machines draped in layers of time. Pulses of dying light flickered sporadically, illuminating storage units pushing the boundaries of the surreal. What was left of the knowledge and technology harnessed by those who dreamed of a brighter tomorrow. "Look," Kyan whispered, pointing toward the far end of the room. An inconspicuous console whirred gently, beckoning us with the allure of discovery. If we unlock that, we may find the core of their plans, the ultimate truth they hide from everyone else. As I stepped closer, the hum from the console pulsed through me with an urgency that made the hair on my arm stand. I was reminded of how secrets brought people together, sparks igniting in the dark. Yet, before Kyan could reach it, the ground beneath us trembled. Dust descended like rain, and a low rumble reverberated like the growl of an awakened beast. "What's happening?" Riordan shouted, stumbling as the floor beneath us shifted, warning us that something had been triggered. Kyan's eyes widened in horror. They must have discovered we're here. Rumbling intensified as metal doors across the room slammed shut. The echoes ricocheted back like an ominous laugh. The way we came in, now hemmed in by barriers of steel. Our options were dwindling. "Get to the console," I screamed, instinctively knowing that this revelation was still within reach. Kyan sprinted forward, maneuvering deftly around the encroaching barriers that cut off our escape. "It won't matter if we can expose them." My breath caught in my throat as I fought against the rising panic. The machinery throbbed, electricity sparked wildly, illuminating Kyan's fierce concentration as they slid into position. With the chaos crescendoing into a relentless roar, I saw them start to input commands, fingers expertly dancing across the cracked interface. Come on," Riordan urged, fear draping his voice. The ground shook harder, machine whirs morphing into howling warnings. I could feel the walls closing in, as if the ruins themselves desired to consume us. As the last command echoed through the console, the lights surged brilliantly, filling the chamber with blinding energy, before illuminating a projection that unfolded lazily in the urgency of the chaos. The hologram revealing images of innocents captured, graphs implicating council leaders. "A look," Kyan shouted, fixing their gaze on what the fading light revealed. A plan to eradicate all survivors, categorized by rank and recognized resistance. It was the truth, the unveiling of a looming punishment that stirred fury within me. This wasn't just a fight for survival, it became an all-consuming fire of retribution. "We need to show everyone this," Riordan yelled, a flame ignited in his eyes as he turned to Kyan. "This is our leverage. We can rally survivors behind it. This is our new weapon." But Kyan's face twisted in horror as the narrative unfolded, and their focus shifted abruptly. "No," they said, comprehension dawning grimly. "This isn't just data. It's bait. The Council wants us drawn out, creating a false narrative on our existence." "What?" I echoed, the realization crashing down like an avalanche. "The League wishes to lurch at any threats to their authority." "This is intentional. They've anticipated our every move," Kyan said, their eyes darting toward the glaring lights flashing on the console. Each pulse resonated like a drumbeat, like a countdown. Each realization hit me hard, mingling hope with dread. "Then we have to escape," I screamed, panic now masquerading as clarity. "Shut this down." Riordan's resolve pushed through the maelstrom. "We can't let them trace us back. This vision is for everyone else, not just us." But even as those words left his lips, the console shifted, projecting out selfies of survivors. faces floating before us in a ghoulish parade of names and identities, flashing like stars on a night sky dimmed by a storm. Suddenly, the floor beneath vibrated more violently, and a voice crackled from hidden speakers, terse with a particular authority. Intruders detected. Termination initiated. Follow directives. Run. I shouted as the machine alarm blared in a cacophony of impending doom. Kyan, moving fast, rushed to deactivate the console with trembling hands, but the door to the room sealed with a mechanical thud. Shadows closed in like claws from the darkness. "Let's go," Riordan urged, heading for a now unlocked hatch that had revealed itself amid chaos. "We fight back later if we must, but we need to get out now." Kyan's hands started to turn back to me, a desperate hesitation flickering there before our collective fear bore us forward. "You're right," I admitted, swallowing the fear clawing at my heart. "If we live to tell the tale, we can still enact our vengeance in the future." With one last glance at the chaotic projections swirling around us, the truth biting into our understanding, I sprinted through the hatch, shadowed lights illuminating the path, while the rumble of containment closed in behind us. Our only choice was escape, every step echoing toward an uncertain fate. We barreled down the hidden corridors, driven by a singular purpose. We would emerge from the shadows to ignite the spark of rebellion, wield knowledge like a weapon. In that moment, torn between fear and a fragile thread of hope, I realized something far more significant. We were now traces of old legends, resigned to etch our name into the annals of time, ready to rise like phoenixes amidst the ashes. Now, more than ever, we had to remind ourselves that our story had been far from over. The narrow escape through the hidden tunnels felt surreal, an adrenaline-fueled rush that blurred the edges of our reality. The metallic scent of burnt circuitry lingered in the air, poignant and alive. While I led the way, heart pounding in tandem with the rhythmic echo of our footsteps, Kyan and Riordan flanked my sides, anxiety crackling between us like static electricity, a shared recognition pulsing beneath our skin. The corridor twisted, steeped in the gloom of uncertainty, moving like a serpent through the heart of the museum. If we had left the maze of technological remnants behind, then this wasn't a world built to celebrate the past. It was a sanctuary of lingering shadows, tendrils wrapping around us as if reminding us of the urgency of our mission. "We need to find an exit," I said through clenched teeth, taking a sharp turn that led to a broader chamber. The walls here were lined with faded murals celebrating the triumphs of humanity, a disheveled history cast in memorialization. I halted mid-step, staring at a mural of a once prominent councilman, his figure heroic, but beneath it lay the insidious coded lies we now understood. "What a twisted legacy," I murmured, despair mixing with the residual embers of anger. "Focus, Terra," Riordan urged, the thunder of his voice redirecting me. "What's more important, the past or our future? We need to get out of here and regroup with others." "Get this information out." He gestured towards the scattered debris of medals and weapons strewn across the many attempts to take back power. "We'll return to this later, you know." Kyan shook their head, gaze darting over the murals as if searching for answers hidden in plain sight. "We need this. Every account here may hold keys to dismantling their narrative. The Council has concealed much of their history, and if we find their roots, we can wield it against them." I felt the tension brewing between us bubble just beneath the surface. Kyan's determination glinted like a beacon, while the veil of fear wrapped tighter around my chest. "But we don't have the time, Kyan. Every moment we linger here, they can track us." I threw my hands up, closing off every possibility of delaying our escape. "We're already rivals, for goodness sake. Perhaps this has been our biggest misstep, running away without understanding the depths of the battleground," Kyan replied, their voice lowering yet rich with intensity. "Look at those murals." I followed Kyan's gaze, catching haunting glimpses of humanity's pursuit to excel. A small frame archway connected to the walls caught the corner of my eye, to some alcove that seemed torn between what had been crafted and what remained hidden beneath layers of neglect. A chorus of possibilities unwound in my mind. Maybe together we could root within the stories of that history and break through the encroaching darkness. Okay, let's just see what's through that archway. But we're moving quickly, I conceded, wrangling against the tight tension fluttering between us. Kyan nodded, and without any further hesitation, they vaulted toward the archway. I exchanged a glance with Riordan, the storm of uncertainty visible in both our expressions. But if Kyan was right, then we dared not overlook the importance of understanding our enemy. The archway led to a vast room, oddly untouched by the ravages of time. Tables cluttered with papers, old holographic projects lay dormant, and ancient journals rested in majestic disarray. This chamber was someone's haven, a hidden space nestled in the core of power where history might reveal itself. This must be the Council's archives, Ikayan whispered reverently, edging toward the expansive tables. Look at all this. As we fanned out, I found myself overwhelmed. I reached for a journal that lay half open. The parchment inside crinkled like brittle leaves as I brushed my fingertips over the lines of faded ink. Words swam before my eyes, descriptions of council meetings punctuated with desperate pleas for authority. They just kept consolidating power, I muttered, frustration curling at the back of my throat. But why? Their need for domination grew like a ravenous flame, Kyan replied, scanning the tables hurriedly. If we can gather this information, uncover how they subjugated the rest of society into submission, we can flip their power dynamic. Riordan gravitated toward a holographic interface connected to a screen at the far end, the heart of the archive. As he wrestled with the device, attempting to access its systems, I could feel a surge of foreboding rise within me. The sense of being tracked still lingered like a specter at our backs, reminding me that time was slipping away. There's data here, Riordan exclaimed, voice thick with intrigue. Old communications, agendas, classified documents, their cooperation with the Council insidiously stretches back decades. What does it say? Kyan leaned in, breathless at the prospect of uncovering secrets that would help shatter the Council's ego. Let me see, I added, scrambling closer to Riordan's side, trying to drown out the voice whispering in my ear. The urgency of our plight pressed against my heart like a stone. I could feel Kyan's excitement, but there was still a part of me that hesitated to believe in this newfound hope. A glowing screen flickered to life, illuminating dark secrets with its blue luminescence. Bulletins raced through transmissions, plans of eradication once rehearsed in a desperate search for dominance. Imagery depicting our own kind labeled as errors, foreigners in their land. The shattering wickedness in those files warned of annihilation. It names individual targets. They're planning to eliminate our remnants. I breathed, a sickening realization cascading down my spine. We need to compile this, consolidate the timelines of their lies. Quickly, Kyan urged, already tapping the screen to navigate through programs, as if a rapid fire had ignited within them. We need to disseminate this information to the others. It's our only chance to ensure that this cycle of violence doesn't continue. Before I could answer, another tremble shook through the chamber, this time with alarming intensity. There's no time, Riordan shouted over the rumble as documents scattered against the floor. The sound of metal and machinery echoed. The Council's forces were upon us. We have to move. With urgency, Kyan reached for the digital console, fingers moving deftly as they gathered files to download onto their device. Lines of compressed data streamed across the screen, urging us to survive. Suddenly, the door shuddered. They're coming, I yelled, urgency poured into every syllable. Adrenaline surged through my veins. The codes, the last files are downloading. Kyan snatched the device, but for what felt like an eternity, we struggled against uncertainty as the ominous footsteps drew ever closer. A wrenching crack heralded the door, and Riordan's shoulders squared against the advancing threat. Get what you can, I'll hold them off, you know. I shouted, panic tightening like a vice. We couldn't leave him. Kyan cast me a grave look. We can't let this be for nothing. The door, but before they could finish, Riordan lunged toward the entrance, body positioning itself as a shield. I'll create a diversion, you have to escape. The boots thundered closer. like hounds on a scent ready to devour. It struck me then, a sharp revelation twinkling through the chaos. A resolve stronger than fear bloomed within me. No, we can't lose any more. Move. I hurled myself toward Riordan, grasping his arm as he tried to stand resolute. Follow Kyan. I'm not leaving you behind. The moment our hands met, something shifted. I realized we were not fighting an enemy that could break our bond. The Council could never take that from us. The shadows and threats loomed closer. We would emerge from this chaos as one. Go, you have to. Riordan strained against me, urgency sharpening his voice. And not without you. I pressed, determination coursing along with the pulse of fear. Kyan loaded the final files, turning resolutely. We will get him, go. That cry ignited a flame. I'd always believed we were stronger together, so I nodded resolutely. We couldn't risk losing what little fire remained, even in the face of impending darkness. Now, I shouted as we released Riordan Hall, our feet hesitant but resolute, the shared resolve curling between us even as the shadows sprinted forward to engulf him. Kyan darted forward through the hidden passage, and I followed close behind, my heart hammering as the roar of conflict erupted from the archive behind us. As we fled deeper into the bowels of the facility, a part of me desperately wished Riordan would follow, that we could remain unbroken. But with every step away from him, the tether between us still pulsed. I could see him, a defiant shadow bracing against despair's looming grasp, fighting for something far grander than fear. Kyan, I gasped, breathless, casting a glance behind. The footsteps echoed before us, urgency lingering at the edges of my consciousness. Are you sure we'll find an exit? We will, just keep moving, Kyan insisted, navigating through the web of corridors thick with trepidation. Every pulse beneath our feet seemed to vibrate, as though the walls mourned the battle raging behind us. Ahead lay a doorway barely illuminated in the deepening shadows. A glimmer of hope amid the tension. Kyan lunged toward it, fingers outstretched, gratitude coursing through their being. Suddenly, with a feral rush of wind, the door blasted open, revealing a darkened passage beyond. A stark contrast to the chaos propelling us forward. There was a moment of stillness, a calm before the storm, allowing a boat of hope to set sail against the tide of despair. We plunged through the entryway, and the door slammed behind us, sealing us away from the conflicts roaring behind us. Distant shouts pierced the silence, shadows still pursuing, but in that moment, we emerged on the other side, our breath mingling in frantic patterns of determination. Where are we? I whispered, feeling the pulse of survival guide us through unexplored passages. Far beyond the archives, Kyan replied, gaze steely, a way out, we'll find it. I know we will. The passage was uneven, floors grappling with the currents of the Earth's reckoning. The respite only stoked the embers of my fear. What happens to Riordan? Kyan glanced back, tension threading through their voice. If he's as resourceful as we know him to be, he'll follow if he can. We need to ensure we have this day a first. We pressed into the still air of uncertainty, each heartbeat a reminder of how much was at stake. Our freedom, our truths forged in the crucible of remnants left behind. Time was slipping. As we trudged further down the corridor, a single thought remained. Each step was fueled by faith. Even in stillness, breaks of uncertainty encapsulated us. Shadows laced their way around the departing storm. An exit, a way forward. Each pulse of resolution replaced the echoes of despair that had haunted us so long. Kyan guided us toward the air of possibility, determined to presage our histories once more. In every shadow, I murmured, voice tinged with fragile hope. There must always be light. As we pressed onward, the specters of our past could no longer dim the brilliance of courage gathering just beyond the horizon. It was a fight to reclaim the future, an endeavor borrowed from flickering embers of fate crafted anew. And among these forgotten ruins of history, hope began to build anew. And now, Kyan said, emotions thickening the air, we'll together expose their tyranny. As our footsteps echoed into the unknown, a sense of purpose quickened within us, a pulse of a shared narrative that would one day burn brightly against the Council's relentless dark. With that, we couldn't stop. We pressed on to carve out our legend, resilient within echoes unyielding, a future sculpted as we determined to rise together. Emerging into the hazy light of dawn, Kyan and I stood at the precipice of a world that felt tenuously alive. The vibrant glow of the flora clung to everything, illuminating the remnants of a civilization that had once dared to dream. Around us, the echoes of the past lingered like whispers on a breeze, curiously comforting and haunting at once. The urgency of our escape from the shadows of the museum still pulsed through me, a living reminder of the choices we had made. But more than that, a flickering flame of hope ignited within, one that promised to forge a new path. The data we had gathered hummed at the forefront of my mind, its potential cascading like molten metal, forged in a new mold of defiance. We needed to get it into the hands of anyone still willing to rise against the Council's malevolence. They were out there, buried in layers of fear but waiting, longing for a spark to reignite their wills. But where to begin? The weight of our new mission settled heavily upon us, heavier than the burden of survival to which we had grown accustomed. We need to reach the river outpost. Kyan broke the silence, tearing me from my thoughts. It is a bastion of resistance, rumored to be a rallying point for survivors. Then that's our destination, I replied, determination wrapping around me like armor. The river outpost was one of the last remnants of hope, a land where whispers of resistance still survived, a chance to share what we had learned. How far is it? Kyan pulled out a small mapping device, fingers expertly tracing through the distance. Not far, in between ruins of the old district. But it's swarming with council patrols. We'll need to navigate through it carefully. Carefully sounds like a plan, I replied, trying to contain the unease creeping up my spine. I felt the pulse of desperation that had driven us to this point. But every ounce of hope hinged on our ability to remain undetected amid the approaching storm that was the council. With silent resolve, we began our journey, moving through the underbrush thick with bioluminescent plants that provided faint illumination. I wanted to believe Kyan was right, that defiance was etched within every frayed shadow alive around us. As we weaved through the tangle of the overgrowth, I listened closely, intently, for any sounds that might reveal lurking danger. Minutes turned into hours as we crossed familiar thresholds marked by the devastation of the past, reminders of lives lived and lost. The intricacies of ruins entangled with wild flora resonated with our tumult. A wasteland sullied by previous pain, but a symbol of resilience standing defiantly. Each step further sewed the fabric of newfound resolve. We would rise from this ash, this despair, hand in hand. As we neared the outskirts of the old district, the terrain began to shift. The air thickened with tension and anxiety, the soft rustle of leaves changing to harsh metallic grinding. A sure sign of drones keeping watch over the wreckage. The drones ahead, Kyan warned, pointing to the gleaming figures that patrolled high overhead, their searchlights sweeping the area. We need cover, I murmured, glancing around for any potential retreat. There's some debris over there. I nudged Kyan, leading us to the remnants of an old transport hub. Overturned cargo vehicles twisted in on themselves formed a natural barricade, broken glass and scattered shards cascading over the ground like frozen tears. As we crouched down behind the wreckage, I could feel a drumming pulse pounding in my chest, a frigid hand gripping my throat as I tuned into the sounds of the patrols. The drones droned ominously above, flashes of bright light slicing through the gloom as their sensors swept over, scanning for any hint of dissent. Stick close, Kyan urged, eyes narrowed. I nodded, determination replacing the fear that had threatened to engulf me. Our shared understanding turned into solidarity, a promise that we would emerge stronger despite the shadows encasing us. A moment later, the drones stationed above began to grow restless, suddenly shifting their focus in a flicker of recognition. The whir of their systems changed, and the tone of the air felt heavy as they descended, sharp, piercing light illuminating the remnants of our hiding space. They're coming, I hissed, dread surging. Just wait, Kyan whispered urgently, fear threading through their brow. I felt the strain in the air as we both held our breath, still and tense, a taut wire ready to snap. A target detected. A mechanized voice buzzed, resonating through the silence with an authoritative echo, ordering defensive measures. The drones dove closer, and a deep rumble reverberated above us as they prepared to unleash their payload of sonic energy. My heart raced as Kyan's eyes flickered, the realization hitting us simultaneously. This engagement could bring the whole patrol down on us in an instant. And now, Kyan yelled, launching into motion as the first droning blast slashed through the debris. A shockwave of energy knocking me back as I dove to the side, frantically pulling Kyan with me as we sought refuge. Ahead for that cover, we sprinted toward a narrow alleyway that opened wide, praying the drones would be thwarted by the tight corners, narrowly avoiding the glowing summary of pursuit. The sound of shattering glass and metal erupting behind us filled the air as we veered through and unleashed the hope powering our strides. Rounding the corner, I spotted a group of survivors moving through the ruins, faces hardened but determined. They were remnants of hope, worn but refusing to fade. This way, a rugged figure beckoned, motioning for us to join. Move quickly, the council's on high alert. Who are they? I whispered to Kyan, quickly slowing to redirect ourselves toward the group as they moved beneath the skeletal remains of remaining infrastructure. The coolness of the air brushed across my skin as I kept my voice low. Survivors like us, Kyan replied, glancing over their shoulders. We can trust them. I wanted to believe Kyan. Each step into the gathering crowd felt like a leap of faith, an entry into a flickering promise. They were allies bound by adversity. As we reached the gathering, the rugged figure stepped closer, crossing his arms. I'm Jace, he said firmly, eyes assessing us with a cautious curiosity. What brings you to our corner of the wreckage? We escaped from the museum, Kyan explained, panting but resolute. We have vital intel, information on the council, their plans. We need to get it out. At the mention of the council, Jace's shoulders tightened. Unease flickered through the crowd. Intel, he asked, glancing at the assembled survivors whispering among themselves. We need evidence, not just more stories of survival. We have proof. We uploaded data on their operations, their targets, everything. We need your help to disseminate it before they snuff us all out. I urged, urgency pouring through me. An apprehensive silence settled over us, eyes flickering with doubts that cast shadows across the gathered crowd. And how do we know this is legitimate? Jace pressed, skepticism radiating from him. Because we escaped, I answered, looking into the faces surrounding us, desperate hope calling through the cracks of resistance. We fought our way through. The council is breathing down our necks, and they won't stop until they've silenced us for good. But if we unite, we can turn the tide. The group began to stir quietly, glances exchanged as murmurs waved through them like undercurrents of apprehensive acceptance. I could feel their hesitation, the weight of fear holding them back against hope straining at the edge. This is our chance, Kyan spoke up, passion resonating through their voice. Let's not fade into heartache. This world, what remains of it, is ours to reclaim. We can build a movement, one built upon truths we uncover. If we expose their tyranny, others will join us. As Kyan's words spiraled around us, realization dawned among the survivors. The spark igniting within each heart, mechanically scrutinized by the past. Let's hear what you found, Jace said at last, moving to lead us closer to a cluster of rusted tables piled high with remnant technology, waiting eagerly for a spark. The urgency raced through me when there was no further time for inaction. We had to take this chance, tip the scales of conflict in our favor. Kyan and I exchanged glances, disbelief mingling with unbridled determination. I felt the remnants of our battles etched within us. We were more than just survivors. The embers of hope flickered like a beacon as we prepped to unveil the council's secrets to a renewed collective. As we began to relay the data, recounting the long-standing plans of surveillance, The rhythmic hum of unity started to weave through the gathered survivors. A sound reminiscent of steel clanging against steel, voices rising as they rallied around the truth of rebellion. In sharing our insight, we neither erased the scars of anguish nor dismissed our struggles. They were every piece of the narrative shaping our collective futures. We spoke of defiance, igniting flickers of spirits long extinguished, every eye lighting with that swelling tide of purpose. And then, just as our voices began to meld like chants overhead, a loud rumble echoed in the distance. The vibrations shook beneath us, then another. Anticipation flickered in the air like a forking jolt, threatening to unravel us again. One of the survivors looked to the high hills ringing the old district, panic coloring their voice. The council, they must have tracked us. Everyone regroup. Jace rallied the gathering, eyes flaring with energy. Prepare to defend our ground. We don't let this stand. We're stronger together. As adrenaline surged against the pulse of impending danger, I felt the weight of this moment settle around us. Fear and hope intertwined like threads binding together as we fashioned new armor against the tide. Don't back down, Kyan shouted, urgency surging through them, every word firm and bold. This is what we've prepared for. We fight for every life, proving we will not be erased. As the sounds of our counteraction melded with the fervent cries of the crowd, pushing back against the weight of impending fate, I grasped Kyan's arm beside me. No more shadows, no more silence. This is our time, and as we united for the stand that would reclaim the sanctity of our future, we swelled against the encroaching darkness like a phoenix rising. Together, we would cast our light into the abyss, painting a new dawn across a landscape long wounded. A dawn remembering that hope rekindled often leads to the powerful resurgence of resistance, echoing omnipotence through the chaos. But no matter the outcome, I knew our hearts beat as one. Our fight was just beginning, and through the shadows of despair, we would forge the phoenixes of our past into the resolute fabric of our future, unyielding, relentless, and bright. The flames of rebellion danced anew the world, though scarred, waited breathlessly for our undying fire. As the dread of the approaching council forces thickened in the air, an electric tension swept through the assembled survivors. The cacophony of echoes reverberated against the decaying structures around us like whispered confessions, a reminder that the battles fought here had been marked not merely by loss but by resilience. I could see the determination glinting in each survivor's eyes, their breaths coming in rapid anticipation of what was to come. We had gathered here, not merely to survive, but to ignite the flames of defiance. Position yourselves, Jace bellowed, galvanizing the crowd as he paced before us. We fight as a single, unified force. Gather what you can find for defense. The council may come at us with drones, but we will not falter. As his words rang out, the atmosphere shifted palpably. Fear intermingled with courage created a whirlwind stoked by urgency, shaping a spirit that felt unstoppable. Kyan and I exchanged a firm glance, and without needing to say another word, we flanked Jace. The remnants of our own encounters had molded us into beings manifested by the uncertainty of the past, the fear of the Council's brutality, and its ambition to exterminate resistance. We would stand strong, rally the corners of the district, ensure everyone knows we won't allow this to happen. Jace's voice elevated as both words and energy pulsed among the crowd. We are not mere survivors, we are the Tempest. We will not be silenced. With that rallying cry, remnants of our spirit reached out to touch every corner of the gathered souls, igniting a powerful resolve among them. We moved in tandem, gathering whichever makeshift defenses we could muster. Pieces of old machinery, scrap metal, and shielded containers turned against us for years now became tools of hopeful retaliation. I scoured the remnants, exploring the faded relics strewn around a derelict assemblage of vehicles. There had to be something here we could use. Among twisted fragments of technology, I noticed an overturned vehicle, its midsection exposed where the undercarriage had split apart. I crouched beside it, clearing layers of filth and dust to reveal a strong battery core that had survived the decay. My heart leaped with hope. The dim glow of what remained inside sent flickers of excitement coursing through me. "Hey, over here," I called to Kyan and Jace. "I think we can use this as a power source for anything." Kyan rushed over, eyes lighting up as they assessed the battery's potential with swift scrutiny. Jace joined us a moment later, a determined look etched across his face. "That'll do nicely. We can repurpose it to power some defenses, energize traps, or even rig up makeshift weaponry to deter them." We quickly set to work, our fingers deftly maneuvering around the scattered components, wiring the old battery into an operational system capable of delivering a pulse of energy when we needed it most. Minutes flowed like hours as I could feel the urgency revving through us like engines on the threshold of propelling forward. "Don't forget to grab the old sonic suppressors too," Kyan shouted, their voice slicing through the clamor. "If we rig those properly, we can stun the drones long enough for us to evade them." We assembled our ad hoc arsenal quickly, finding items that had once been used for different purposes and adapting them for this moment of defiance. Everywhere I turned, I caught glimpses of fierce resolve on the faces around me. These were not just remnants. They were warriors of their own destinies, defying the very cycle of despair they had been trapped in. As we rallied survivors, the energy within the quarter teetered on the edge of vivacity. The promise of finally becoming warriors against the Council's merciless grip filled our veins with adrenaline. Yet, in those moments as we prepared, a bittersweet pang flickered in the back of my mind. The uncertainty of Riordan's fate gnawed at me like an exposed wound. Had he managed to evade capture? The earth shuddered again, closer this time, a distant rumble that resonated like thunder against the quiet aspirations unfolding around me. It was a grim reminder that the confrontation loomed on the horizon, threatening to consume our fragile solidarity. "Steady yourself, stay in formation," Jace called out, snapping everyone back to work. "Hold the line when they come. We need to create openings for others to flee if it comes to that." As a collective, we formed our strategy, throwing glances of faith toward one another. We would be the agents of change, the refusal to fade. I looked around at the determined faces, the fire ignited, and I felt hope begin to swell. Not just for personal survival, but for the potential to rekindle a world painted with colors of possibility. "Follow my lead," Kyan exclaimed, adjusting the last of our defenses near the perimeter, where shadows danced ominously, creeping closer under the cloak of early dusk. Sirens pierced the silence, shrilling through the air like banshees heralding a storm, jarring our hearts into a racing beat. "They are here," someone shouted. "Take your positions," Jace commanded, standing tall amid the throng, eyes glimmering with fierce purpose, a warrior poised to fight. As the sun relinquished its hold on the horizon, fading into twilight, we steadied ourselves, hearts alight with determination. I could feel the pulsing rhythm of collective breaths. An undercurrent of defiance was building, letting us know this fight was ours to claim. From the shadows emerged the sleek forms of drones. Glistening with authority, they hovered over our gathering like predators sizing up their prey. An electric hum filled the air, and the anxiety morphed into resolute anger. "We won't go quietly," I called out, adrenaline surging through me as I gripped makeshift weaponry. Jace positioned himself at the front, surveying the oncoming storm of metallic monstrosities. "When they approach, unleash whatever you have, hold your ground." With a fierce battle cry roaring from our mouths, we charged forward en masse, spirits entwined in furious resistance. I felt my blood thrum in my veins, the clarity of purpose weaving through our ranks. The Council's hold on us would be shattered here. Drones activated their offense, stunning pulses arcing through the air. I dove to the side, narrowly avoiding the oncoming wave of energy that tore through the space where I had stood just moments before. Behind me, flickers of light flared like fireworks as sonic suppressors obliterated the encroaching threats, stunning the drones overhead. "Push them back," Kyan shouted, moving fluidly among the fray, guiding the survivors with hard-earned expertise and furious energy. We were no longer mere shadows, no longer cowering in corners. We dared to reclaim our humanity through this embrace of resistance. Jace seized the moment, lashing out with a piece of scrap that struck one of the drones, sending it careening into the earth with a crash. A cheer erupted behind us, but the tide wouldn't easily relent. I spied a cluster of survivors brandishing their makeshift weapons, embers dancing in their eyes as they unleashed a torrent of defiance against the Council forces. We would stand undaunted, the echoes of our voices intertwined, rising to new heights, forming a chorus of hope. Then came the sirens again, more insistent this time. Their rallying reinforcements. Ikayan scoffed as they hurled another surge of energy toward an approaching melee drone. We need to draw them away. We must buy time. As the drones regrouped, their ominous were intensified, showcasing sleek aerodynamic forms that hinted at brutal power. Every member of the crowd rallied, refusing to concede as our defenses strained against the impending swarm. I turned to survey what remained of the makeshift barricades, which wavered and sputtered under the onslaught. Resolve twisted inside me. If we had any chance at survival, we would need to spark something Fibonacci. Move together as a lion's heart, fierce, unrelenting. On me, let's push toward that ridge, I shouted, recognizing a narrow path that would lead us to higher ground. Better vantage points where we could regroup and counterattack. Follow my lead, with a battle cry echoing through our raft of souls, we surged toward the ridge, weaving through debris as drones whirred ominously overhead. For every pulse of danger, our wills aligned relentlessly with desperation. We refused to lose another to their wrath. As we reached the embankment, I instinctively climbed up to find the best sightlines. Hold the line, I called out as we gathered our bearings atop the ridge. We will not be sacrificial lambs. They will know we are coming for them. Below us, the Council drones formed ranks, sensors sweeping through the shadows of the landscape. I could hear their mechanical chatter, and I wondered, had they ever experienced fear? Had they ever known the drive of survival that surged through our spirits? Touch the button, Kyan commanded, holding tightly to the charged defenses we had prepared earlier. Ready, I grinned, adrenaline pounding. I barely tightened my grasp around the makeshift weaponry as the energy surged up the length of my spine. On my mark. 3, 2, 1, go. A cacophony erupted as the makeshift defenses ignited in a vibrant display of light. A shockwave that reverberated across the old district, sending light bursting through the thinning atmosphere. The dazzle cascaded with raw energy. It surged through the ranks, scattering the incoming drones under a curtain of blinding brilliance. We unleashed everything we had. An extension of our collective voices turned into surges that propelled us beyond insignificance. We will reclaim this, I proclaimed, the words vibrating through the air as we charged. The Council will no longer define the narrative. Drones fell from the sky, still carrying remnants of their audacity while we climbed higher. The ridge became our foothold, the symbol of resurgence against oppression. The shade of dawn's early light intertwined with our drive for justice. Around me, I could feel their resolve, hear the rhythmic drumming of hope echo through us, weaving a new story forged in rebellion. And we marched forward, together reclaiming our legacy with every pulse, echoing against despair, offering a testament. The dawn had not yet arrived. We would ignite it from within. But that was only the beginning of our fight. As the dust settled gently around us, the reality of what remained coursed through me. If the echoes of the world sought harbingers of change, we would emerge as those fateful pioneers, reclaiming wisdom from the fractals of our paths as we strived against the oppressive forces cloaked in shadows. We would spark a revolution, together, I called out to my comrades, feeling the warmth of unity enkindling us. Let's reclaim what it means to rise. The Council may have thought they could extinguish our light, but as long as we stood together, flames of resistance would dance eternally against the tide of oppression. Our narratives intertwined, a tapestry of hope amidst their attempted extinction. We were the phoenixes daring to soar, once more risen from the ashes, spiraling through a cosmos of newfound purpose. Destiny awaited a future ours to mold, together, fiercely and unrelenting. With that flame still alight in our hearts, we marched forward into the unknown, ready to forge our legacy anew. The high-pitched whir of drones scoured the remnants of the old district as I stood atop the ridge, my heart racing with the adrenaline of the recent battle. We had fought fiercely, and now, as the dust settled around us, the world felt poised between anticipation and dread. The energy of our victory pulsed through the survivors gathered at my feet, who had valiantly stood against embers of despair, their hope glimmering in the morning light. Kyan leaned close, scanning the horizon for the encroaching threat. We need to regroup. This is only the start. Someone will notice the drones we disabled. They'll come looking for us. Their voice carried an urgency that pulsed in time with my own racing heart. Right, I exhaled, feeling the weight of each fleeting breath as I surveyed what lay beyond. If we can reach the river outpost, we may find shelter, but we have to move quickly. The gathering had fortuitously broken apart the heaviness clinging to us. I felt lighter now, buoyed by our resolve. We had tasted victory unattached to our past. The thrill of forging a path forward had seeped into our veins, and nothing would steal that from us. Let's head towards the alleyways, I called out. With purposeful strides, I shifted toward the narrow paths threading through the debris, gesturing for everyone to follow. Together, we flowed like water channeled through a mountain pass, doubt and fear washed away in the force of our solidarity. As we navigated through the jagged remnants of yesterday's civilization, I saw the determination carved into the worn faces of survivors alongside me. Each one had suffered. They bore the scars of a life lived under the shadows of the council. But now, they were warriors in this fight. We were a family forged in chaos, treading the delicate line of existence. The echoes of distant sirens tugged at the edges of my awareness, prompting my thoughts to drift back to Riordan. What if he didn't make it? I blurted, unable to quell the gnawing anxiety clawing at my insides. What if the council? Kyan glanced at me, their eyes sharp with empathy. We can't focus on fear. Our survival depends on belief that we can bring him back, and that every ounce of pain we've endured will lead us to brighter tomorrows. The assurance in Kyan's words propelled me forward. I knew we needed one another to survive, not just in the physical sense, but in the belief that we could uncover paths even unknown. Bucking against the tide of despair, we pressed onward. After navigating a labyrinth of tunnels and treacherous paths, we emerged into a clearing dominated by the remnants of an old square. A once bustling marketplace now overgrown with luminescent vines twisting around crumbling pillars. The air thrummed with life, the distant calls of a world slowly reclaiming its territory filling the atmosphere. We're close now, murmured Jace, who had joined us in the lead, a fierce light of determination glinting in his eyes. The outpost lies just across that ridge. An insistent flutter crept into my thoughts, the anticipation of what awaited us mingling with the looming danger behind our escape. We need to move quickly, I urged, urgency creeping into my voice. The council won't waste time, and resistance sighted here is a threat they won't overlook. As we made our way to the edge, the outpost materialized, a fortified gather of structures fashioned from the remnants of the old world. A veritable fortress of makeshift barricades and vines interlaced with eerily glowing flora. The sentinel on patrol, a vigilant figure clad in patched gear, spotted us and raised a signal flag. Message of welcome and caution. Once we stepped past the initial entry, I could feel the reprieve settle over us. Survivors moved about in synchronized steps, hands toiling just as they stitched together pieces of their newfound life, mending not just the fabric of their society, but of their spirits as well. But beneath the surface shimmered another layer of urgency. Voices rose in rebellion, discussions echoing of fortifications and strategies to disrupt the council's advancement. Hope flared brightly, and I knew the time for our intel had come. Gather around, Jace called, drawing attention with an authoritative yet warm tone. We've got news that could shift the landscape, information that reveals the council's covert plans. We must mobilize and act decisively. The crowd slowly coalesced, attention drawn like moths to a flame, hearts pounding in anticipation. I felt a deep strength fill the ether, an invisible thread weaving through us all, uniting us as one cohesive force. We were no longer individuals wading through despair. We were an interconnected community rallying against the faceless enemies looming in the shadows. Kyan stepped forward, joining Jace. Our brothers and sisters in the districts hold the keys to turning the tide. They operate in the shadows to protect the few of us left. Together, we can give voice to their plight. You all have experienced the Council's wrath. Let's turn this fear into power. I watched as Kyan spoke passionately, each word igniting sparks of energy within the assembly. The tide of defiance rolled forward like waves crashing against the shore. Hearts swelling with determination, pulsing with resistance toward a horizon edged in belief. I sensed a shift in the crowd, a palpable tension brimming with potential and unity. It was time. It was our moment to stake our claim against a council that sought to stamp out any glimmer of life. In a fever of rallying cries, hands immediately rose in the air, a collective echo reverberating against the walls of despair. Surrounded by brave advocates, I raised my own hand, feeling the moment crystallize around us. Let's gather our weapons. We will not just survive, we will strike back. We will take the fight to them. I shouted, exhilaration crashing over me, binding us as warriors bound by grief but forged through resistance. As the rally turned to preparations, plans unfurled around us like paper wings. Ideas bounced back and forth, crafting strategies while the light of day danced across the ground, twinkling through the treetops, casting fleeting glances at what lay ahead. We would outsmart the council. We would reclaim our voices. While the group strategized, I stole a moment to consider our next move. Should we divide into smaller squads to cover more ground? The thought stirred within me, weaving itself into this tapestry of possibility. Maybe this would allow us to create attacks that were unpredictable, an ambush that would unduly bend the will of the council to permit escape routes for the vulnerable. In a heated rush, I found Jace nearby, laying out plans for the coming revolt against the council's weaknesses. If we split into 3 teams, we can cover the sectors of the old district where residual council technology remains. I proposed, meeting his gaze with vigor. It will allow us to sabotage their operations, and while we're doing so, we can gather intel from those terrified of being exposed. Jace nodded, grasping the vision sweeping through us. Brilliant. We'll maximize our reach. Kyan, can your skill set guide us with analysis? Absolutely, Kyan replied, voice electrified by camaraderie. We'll work alongside you, mapping out where intel accumulates. We'll move quickly but efficiently. Let's make use of the council's overconfidence. What of Riordan? I asked, my heart clenching as anxiety gripped me. By dividing our forces, will he be left out? Jace squeezed my shoulder, a gesture both supportive and firm. If anyone can survive an ambush, it's him, and we won't abandon his fight. Once we establish communication, we will search for him as soon as we return from the council's blind spots. With a steadying breath, I steeled my resolve. Understood. We press onward. With every heartbeat, excitement surged among our ranks, colors shimmering with the promise of what lay ahead. Exhaustion was merely a veil overshadowed by unity. A deep longing for freedom swirled through us like smoke escaping reaching hands. We were a chorus of resistance, an uprising assembled to reclaim our narratives. Each of us fueled with purpose unmasked. The preparations ramped up as we wound our way through the outpost, surveying the weapons and tools available to us, as if gathering remnants of dreams strewn across the ground, piecing together a vibrant tapestry woven from our struggle. I found myself immersed in the buzz of voices discussing tactics, punctuated by hands clapping against surfaces, excitement trailing through the air in anticipation, crafting them into frontline soldiers ready to redefine their destiny. Hope became our mantra, unity became our battle cry. Tensions arose and formed within the fabric of our plans, and soon, conversations morphed into bursts of fervor. Nerves sparked within our collective spirit, expectations buzzing against the thick air as we prepared our assault. "We're ready," Kyan called, moving toward the center. But we're armed with knowledge, fueled by our shared resilience and unified in purpose. We will strike back and carve a new future for ourselves and those we lost. The crowd shifted as a roar erupted from their midst, an echo of belief and power that surged as one. Together, we all shouted, creating a cacophony layered in determination, thundering against whatever threat lay ahead. I felt alive in that moment, rallying together as warriors bound by identical purpose ceased to be simply a dream. It became our tangible potential, the flickering light in the heart of our uncertainty. In unison, we took our positions, an assembly of fire, a beacon against the backdrop of a darkened world. As I stepped onto the pathway toward the horizontals of tomorrow, a familiar smell filled the air, the ignited promise of a new dawn unfurling. We were a new breed of soldiers, armed with both wounds and wisdom, ready to reclaim our legacy against those who invoked darkness upon us. In this swirling tempest of rebellion, I knew we bore the stories and dreams of generations lost. Their legacies forged into our resolve. This was merely the beginning of what it meant to rise. As our battle cry unveiled the power of our convictions, we surged forth, determined to etch our names into the annals of history. Together, we would script our tale against the encroaching shadows, leaving a resounding echo of resilience in our wake. And through the chorus of our defiance, I understood that no matter the pain we had weathered, we were the fire igniting anew. No force would extinguish our flame. It was then I realized, the Council would never comprehend the true power of the human spirit united in resilience. With spirits brimming with possibility, we plunged forth into the unknown, a pulse of revolution firmly resonating at our core. And there, cast in colors of conviction, we would rise. As we descended the ridge, the murmurs of resolve echoed through us, our collective heartbeat synchronized in anticipatory rhythm. With the sunlight stretching its fingers across the horizon, illuminating our path, I felt our spirits heighten, buoyed by adrenaline and purpose. In that moment, the world seemed to hold its breath, as if the very fabric of reality acknowledged the significance of what we were about to undertake. "Remember, we're not just fighting for survival," Jace reminded the group, his voice steady and commanding. "But we're reclaiming our right to exist, to be heard, to be seen. Let's ensure we leave a message that cannot be ignored." I felt the resonance of his words pulse through the crowd. Each survivor around me had borne the scars of loss, yet today we transformed that grief into a force of resilience. We were warriors, and this time we wouldn't be silenced. As we raced toward the old council headquarters, a stark monument of authority looming over the remnants of what used to be, a plan began to unfurl in my mind. The building towered like an ominous specter against a backdrop of disappointment, loomed with shadows that clung to its edges, whispering remnants of the past. "All right," swift and decisive, Kyan urged, directing our attention to a digital map flickering at the center of our assembled group. "The council has multiple points of entry, but this side," they pointed to a less reinforced passage, "is likely the most vulnerable. Make no mistake, they'll have guards, but if we can disable their systems, we'll create a diversion that opens the way for others." With silent agreement, we split into teams, maneuvering with precision and urgency. Jace led the first group toward the primary access point to secure the perimeter, while Kyan and I took the lead in our secondary team, ready to infiltrate the lower levels. As we approached the dimly lit side entrance, I could hear soft humming emanating from the shadows, the machinery of the council vibrant and alive. I glanced at Kyan, who nodded, understanding flickering through our shared resolve. We knew we had little time. The council's patrols continued their ascension along the rooftops, their scanners sweeping through the space as if they anticipated our arrival. The now familiar hum of drones filled the air, echoing around us with predatory intent. Pressing through the crumbling archway, we were immediately met with the sight of a hallway lined with flickering screens, ghosts of day, whispering out information that had once controlled the fates of millions. The air was thick, steeped in decades of oppression, and resentment flared within me as flashes of memories danced at the edges of my consciousness. "Look for the mainframe," Kyan urged, scanning the surroundings. "It has to be here. It should be deeper within." "Let's split, Kyan. Take the lead and I'll cover you," I whispered. Adrenaline coursed through me as I stepped into the shadows, urging us both onward through the maze of machinery. As we wound deeper into the heart of the Council's technology, tension gripped me, a tight coil of anticipation threaded with fear. "Almost there," Kyan muttered, fingers darting over the equipment scattered across the tables, drawing closer to a larger console at the end of the chamber. My heart raced with terror and anticipation as I felt the atmosphere shift, the palpable sense of danger tightening around us. "We're running out of time," I reminded softly, anxiety gnawing at my insides. "They'll sense us if we stay too long." Suddenly, alarm klaxons blared, cutting through the heavy air. Red lights flashed above us, illuminating the surroundings in chaotic urgency. "Go, go," Kyan yelled, pushing against the console with furor. "I'll loop their systems. We need to disable everything to ensure a clear path for the others." Their voice was tense, fueled by an unrelenting desire to reclaim what had been taken from us. With every ounce of focus I had, I pulled the surrounding equipment to redirect attention while Kyan set about disabling the mainframe. Each whir of technology grew in intensity, as if the very heart of the Council was thrumming beneath our fingertips. "All clear," Kyan cried, adrenaline lacing their words. "Now's our chance." As we moved toward the exit, footsteps echoed across the concrete floor, heavy and deliberate. I felt my heart drop as I turned to see a contingent of council guards marching down the corridor, scanning hungrily for intruders. "Run!" I shouted, adrenaline propelling us into motion. We dashed toward the neighboring corridor as blasts of energy shot past us, narrowly missing our heels. We had to find our way back to Jace and the others. "Left!" Kyan shouted, veering sharply as the corridor lit up with their chaotic energy. The darkness swallowed us as we pushed forward through shadows that morphed into deadly traps. We barreled through until we reached a staircase leading back toward the exiting elevator shaft. "This way," Kyan yelled, darting through the doorway just as a blinding flash illuminated our path. The ground beneath us rattled as blasts echoed around us, remnants of the Council's fury chasing close behind. I could feel my heart race, the chorus of my breath scaling the walls as our feet pounded against the surfaces below. We were almost there. We could feel it in our bones. Emerging from the depths of the building, we were met once more with the shimmering sunlight breaking over the horizon, spreading warmth and illumination over us like a consuming tide. As we surged into the square, chaos erupted around us. Jace and the others had managed to fortify the front lines, engaging with the Council in a fierce battle. "Stay strong," Jace called out, unwavering against the chaos. "We need to hold the line." Staggering but determined, Kyan and I raced forward, joining the fray alongside our allies. As we engaged in close combat, screams echoed alongside the sounds of static and chaos. It was chaotic yet exhilarating. We fought for something no longer intangible, something we realized was worth every ounce of sacrifice. With each step forward, memories of those lost and those we fought for surged in front of me, faces illuminated by flickers of hope and sparks of rebellion. The tide of the battle began to shift. We realized our voices rang together, an unbroken choir of now or never. "For freedom," I shouted as I lunged forward, severing a mechanical limb from a blocking drone. "We fight for those we've lost," and as if responding to that rallying call, our spirits ignited like a blazing fire, pushing harder against the Council's stranglehold. We formed a unified front, steadily pushing back against the onslaught, our voices lifting into a roar against the suffocating darkness. Then came the moment. The chance we had long awaited. Kyan rallied our allies behind them, guiding us into a concentrated strike toward the heart of the Council's reinforcements. "We push now, together," Kyan shouted, urgency vibrating through their voice like music, threading resilience with determination. "We can do this." Every ounce of energy melded with their words, echoing through the crowd. And in that moment, we surged forward, colliding with the council like a wave crashing against hardened cliffs. As momentum built, every blade of resistance raised, every scream against oppression ignited new resolve. I turned toward Kyan, feeling their fierce light guiding us through the chaos. "We'll face whatever lies ahead," I proclaimed, determination coursing through our veins. Together, with each advancing footstep, we peeled through defenses, scattering resistance and pushing further into the depths of the Council's facility. We would show them that chains had not broken us. Ours was a future fueled with the fire of those we cherished. "What's next?" I called to Kyan, breathless. "Take the archive data. It's the final piece," Kyan responded over the shrill cries of chaos. "It holds the evidence we need to expose their tyranny." In towering ferocity, I maneuvered through the remnants of battle, heedless of the fear that clutched at my heart. Everything hinged on this moment's odds as we clashed against the Council's fortified heart, fighting tooth and nail against oppression. With our combined strength, we cleared a path toward the archives, past the echoes of chaos urging us onward. Together, we confronted the future, hunting for the key to unlock a brighter tomorrow. At last, we reached the archive doors, grinding against the weight of devastation. I glanced at Kyan, seeing the urgency within their eyes, and nodded resolutely as we pushed inside. In the dim light, the archive loomed like a fortress of knowledge, layers of history cascading over the walls. I darted toward a central console bursting with information, feeling an electric surge pulse through me. The knowledge we sought was here. "Connect," Kyan shouted, racing to help me access the files. As I breached the defenses of the archives, the potential inside threatened to overwhelm me, decades of conspiracy, corruption, and deceit at our fingertips. The drone blasts continued to rage behind us, but time extended in those moments of quiet realization. All the fight I had carried, every breath I'd taken, led us here to reclaim our story, one that dared to shatter the Council's empire from within. As data streamed, illuminating the darkness before us, I could feel Kyan's urgency. "What are you waiting for? Download everything. Every measure, every blemish of truth hidden in these archives. Let's weaponize what we know." With every file that downloaded, the reality of our fight began to crystallize around us. This knowledge would serve us as both shield and sword, a beacon of hope against the endless night. Together, we were reclaiming the light, unearthing the truths that would shine through the darkness. "I'm done," I exclaimed, urgency saturating my voice, as data flooded the prepared devices. We'd compiled everything vital to level the playing field. Kyan nodded, and with a swift movement, turned back toward our escape route. "Now we get back to the others and share what we've found." We darted out of the archive, our hearts pounding to the rhythm of freedom as we traversed the chaos around us. We emerged, thrusting into the din bodies fighting and falling around us. Yet there was still unyielding hope encircling our souls, chanting for every life sacrificed against the Council's blasphemous grasp. "Keep pushing," Jace shouted, brandishing his weapon with conviction, rallying those who fought together alongside him. "For those who fell before us, we won't stop fighting," I proclaimed as Kyan and I regrouped. "This is for every soul affected by their tyranny." Sensing renewed energy across the field, the tide shifted dramatically. Fragments of the Council's hold began to fracture beneath our relentless defiance. Every voice forged its vow, an assurance reverberating against the lessons of yesterday and the aspirations of tomorrow. From that point, we fought like a tempest, driven by the momentum woven between us. The Council would witness their downfall unfold beneath the gathering storm. And then it happened. The heart of the Council's core lay exposed in the distance, a suffocating chokehold of irate power struggling against the cascading defiance soaring through us. Together, we forged ahead relentlessly, promises propelling each relentless step, reclaiming what would have sooner dissolved into dust. "We're almost there," Kyan shouted, clawing at the displays of chaos unraveling in photographs from the past, confirming every ounce of horror we had endured. Each moment of strength sharpening in our collective memory. No turning back. Just then, a booming voice rang through the air, filled with authority and menace. No, you will not succeed. A cloaked figure emerged from behind the makeshift barricade, flanked by council guards, twisted emotions etched deep into their face. It was a face I recognized, the director of the council, the architect of our suffering, the epitome of everything we sought to dismantle. Your rebellion ends here, the director shouted, voice dripping with contempt as they pointed a weapon directly at us. You think mere numbers will save you. You are but echoes against a storm. We are more than echoes, I countered, feeling a surge of electricity ricochet through my veins, propelling the strength of those who stood beside me. We are a force reborn. We refuse to let fear dictate our future. With that battle cry echoing in my mind and bolstering the determination coursing through every ally, those words became our rallying chant. We surged forward, a tempest rising within the swirling chaos, forming a singular wave of unyielding unity. Blasts whirred above us, energies crescendoing into motes of spark, and together we moved toward the director, our collective resistance crashing against the darkness. Nothing could challenge the power of unity molded purposefully from the fires of our shared resolve. The ensuing battle surrounded us, and as echoes of their words turned into shrieks of desperation, the council faltered for the first time beneath the immensity of our will. We fought as one, each weapon animated by hope, each blow struck in solidarity. Then we surged forward on our last strike, unbroken and defiant, as Kyan and I took the forefront against the director. We would seize control of our fate. As the torrent of resistance crashed upon the council, we harnessed the force of the very knowledge we had uncovered. And now, Kyan shouted as every ounce of energy harmonized within the fight, pushing forward against the weight of oppression. A flicker lit against our rising hope. A wave of resistance capturing every voice that dared to soar against the council's despair. And from that moment on, nothing could encumber us. Together we laughed in the face of chaos, reborn amid the possibility we long sought to achieve. As I charged alongside Kyan, and as echoes of the past faded into obscurity, we emerged triumphant. The council's desperate cries contra the tempest of our everlasting resolve. We had reclaimed our rights to live, resist, and laugh in the face of suppression. The weight of history clung to our skin like ash. We were sculptors of the dawn, igniting across a fractured world. We would write our narrative. The legacy of those lost echoed brightly through us, folding into a new tapestry bathed in glorious sun. Together we would forge ahead, a new dawn, knowledge illuminating our way, blazing paths of wonder beneath the horizon. As a unified force, we rose, a constellation of change shimmering in defiance against a lost sky longing to be reborn. We were the embodiment of hope, the dawn of a future wholly our own. The age of the council was drawing to a close as we stepped across the threshold into a new dawn, bold, relentless, and truly free. And that was just the beginning.